The giant alien ship floated in space above Earth's moon like a deadly crystal mountain. Its surface sparkled with strange lights that made it look both beautiful and terrifying. Inside the ship, Ambassador Crix prepared for what he thought would be another easy conquest. His people had done this 847 times before. Every single species had either surrendered immediately or been wiped out within days. Crix had 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws that could cut through steel. His insect-like face had large compound eyes that saw everything. When he spoke, it sounded like clicking and whistling, but his translator turned it into perfect human language. He stood in front of a glowing screen that showed Earth's leaders, sitting around a big round table in Seoul. The room on Earth was quiet and tense. President Park Min-seo sat with her hands folded, her face showing no emotion. She had been preparing for this moment ever since humans first detected alien signals 5 years ago. Next to her, General Lee Dae-ho wore his military uniform with quiet pride. His grey hair and steady eyes showed he was a man who had seen many battles. "People of Earth," Crix began, his voice echoing through the human conference room. "I am Ambassador Crix of the Veltharan Empire. We have ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. We have brought peace and order to 847 star systems. Every world we visit makes the same choice. Join us willingly or be destroyed." The alien's words were spoken like he was reading from a shopping list. He had given this same speech hundreds of times. To him, humans were just another primitive species that would bow down or die. "You have exactly 72 of your hours to surrender completely," Crix continued. "Accept our rule, and your people will live as servants of the Empire. Refuse, and your entire planet will be cleansed of life. We have weapons that can crack worlds in half. We have diseases that kill every living thing. We have done this before, and we will do it again." The human leaders listened in complete silence. Some looked angry, others looked scared, but most just looked determined. They had known this day would come. Earth scientists had been watching alien movements for years through secret telescopes and hidden sensors. Defense Minister Kim Soo-jin was the first to show any reaction. She raised one eyebrow slightly, which for her was like shouting. She had spent 30 years building Earth's defenses, turning every moon, asteroid, and space station into a hidden fortress. General Lee Dae-ho finally stood up slowly. He was not a tall man, but something about him made him seem bigger than everyone else in the room. When he spoke, his voice was calm and polite, like he was talking to an old friend. "Ambassador Crix," Dae-ho said with a slight bow, "we thank you for your generous offer. We understand you have conquered many worlds, and your empire is very powerful. However, we must politely say no to your invitation." The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly, which the humans had learned meant surprise or confusion. No species had ever said no this politely before. Most either begged for mercy or started shooting immediately. Dae-ho continued speaking in the same calm voice. "Instead, we would like to give you some friendly advice. Please leave our solar system within 24 hours. If you stay longer, you will discover something very interesting about humans. You will learn why no alien species has ever successfully invaded Earth." The silence that followed was so complete that people could hear their own heartbeats. Crix stared at the humans like they had just told him the moon was made of cheese. His forearms twitched nervously. Then the alien began to laugh. It was a horrible sound, like breaking glass mixed with screaming metal. "Primitive arrogance," he said between clicks. "You are a single planet with no space empire. We have conquered species with technology far beyond yours. Our War Council will be very amused by your foolishness." President Park Min-seo smiled for the first time during the meeting. It was not a happy smile. "Ambassador, you are welcome to find out how amusing we can be." The transmission ended with a flash of static. The human leaders sat in silence for a moment. Then Defense Minister Kim Soo-jin turned to General Lee Dae-ho. "Are we really ready for this, Dae-ho?" she asked quietly. The general looked out the window at the night sky, where the alien ship waited like a sleeping monster. "Soo-jin, we have been preparing for this war for 50 years. Every human government has worked together in secret. Every factory, every mine, every space station has been building weapons. Now we find out if 50 years of preparation is enough to save our world. What the aliens did not know was that humans had been watching and learning since the first alien signal was detected. They had built weapons the aliens could not imagine, trained soldiers for a war they hoped would never come, and turned their entire solar system into the most dangerous trap in the galaxy. The war was about to begin, and the Veltharan Empire was about to learn why humans called their deadly world home. 3 days passed after the aliens gave their ultimatum. The humans seemed to be going about their normal business, but high above Earth, invisible alien ships were watching everything. These scout ships had special cloaking technology that made them completely invisible to human eyes and most sensors. Commander Thex sat in his command chair aboard the spy ship called Silent Observer. He was a veteran of hundreds of scouting missions. Every time was the same. Scan the primitive planet, count their simple weapons, then report back how easy the conquest would be. He expected this mission to be just as boring as all the others, but something was wrong. The scanner readings were not making sense. "Commander," called Scanner Cast Erix from his workstation. His voice sounded confused and worried. "The humans have hidden weapons throughout their asteroid belt, but these are not energy weapons like we use. The signatures suggest kinetic accelerators." Thex looked at the tactical display with mild interest. Kinetic weapons meant the humans were throwing rocks or metal at high speeds instead of using plasma beams or laser cannons. "How primitive," he said with a dismissive wave of his claw. "Throwing rocks in space. What else do you see?" Erix worked at his controls, diving deeper into the human data networks. What he found made his blood run cold. "Sir, their military history is unlike anything in our records. They have fought 3 planet-wide wars, countless smaller conflicts. They have developed weapons we do not understand." The alien scanner continued reading from his screen, his voice getting more nervous with each word. "Biological agents that target specific genetic sequences, chemical compounds that can kill thousands with just a few drops, and something they call nuclear fusion bombs that can destroy entire cities in seconds." Thex felt a chill run down his spine. Most species they conquered had never even fought a serious war. They were peaceful civilizations that had spent their time exploring space and art. But humans seemed to have spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other. Meanwhile, deep beneath the busy streets of Seoul, Colonel Choi Hee-won walked through the most advanced military command center ever built. The underground facility stretched for miles in all directions. Thousands of technicians sat at computer stations, monitoring every alien movement in real time. The walls were covered with screens showing space around Earth. Red dots marked the positions of alien scout ships, even though they thought they were invisible. Blue dots showed human defensive positions. There were so many blue dots that the screens looked like they were covered in stars. "Status report," Haiwan called to Major Kang Boram, her second in command. Boram looked up from her workstation with a slight smile. "The alien scouts have found about 60% of our obvious defensive positions. They have located the missile batteries on Luna and the railgun platforms around Mars." Haiwan nodded with satisfaction. "And the hidden assets?" "Still completely invisible to them," Boram replied. "They have no idea about the mobile defense platforms or the deep space hunter-killer units. They also missed all the converted civilian ships." Haiwan smiled coldly. It was the smile of a predator watching prey walk into a trap. "Perfect. Let them think they understand what they are facing." High above Earth, Admiral Park Jin-woo stood on the bridge of what looked like an ordinary cargo ship called Peaceful Commerce. To alien sensors, his vessel appeared to be carrying simple trade goods between Earth and Mars. The ship looked old and harmless, with rust stains and patches on the hull, but appearances were deceiving. Hidden beneath the fake cargo containers were weapons powerful enough to destroy a small moon. The crew wore civilian clothes, but they were all highly trained military personnel. Even the ship's cook was a former Special Forces soldier. "Admiral," reported his sensor officer quietly, "3 alien scouts are passing within scanning range." Jinwoo watched the invisible alien ships through his passive sensors. His equipment could detect them, but he made sure his ship gave off no signals that would reveal this ability. "Maintain the charade," he ordered his bridge crew. "Look bored and civilian. Let them see exactly what we want them to see." The bridge crew began acting like tired cargo workers. They slumped in their chairs, complained about long work hours, and made their ship look as non-threatening as possible. Meanwhile, weapons systems that could crack planets remained hidden and ready. All across the solar system, the same scene was playing out. Ships that looked like miners, traders, and research vessels were actually mobile fortresses. Asteroid mining operations were really weapons factories. Even the tourist stations orbiting Jupiter were armed to the teeth. The aliens thought they were scouting a primitive civilization with simple defenses. They had no idea they were looking at the most sophisticated military deception in galactic history. The humans were not just hiding their weapons, they were hiding their entire civilization's true nature. The trap was set, and the aliens were. Walking right into it, Admiral Kren Prime stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the 12 massive warships under his command. Each heavy cruiser was the size of a small city, bristling with plasma cannons and energy shields. Surrounding them were dozens of smaller escort ships, all painted in the intimidating black and gold colors of the Veltharan Empire. This was supposed to be a simple test mission. The Empire always sent a probe fleet first to see how hard their enemies would fight. Most primitive species would either surrender immediately or put up a pathetic resistance that lasted maybe an hour. Kren Prime expected the humans to be no different. "Her approaching Mars orbit, Admiral," reported his navigation officer. "Sensors show typical mining operations. A few orbital platforms, some cargo ships, nothing threatening." Kren Prime nodded with satisfaction. Mars looked exactly like what they expected. A small human colony focused on digging rocks and metals from the red planet's surface. The few structures visible from space appeared to be simple mining equipment and worker housing. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Standard intimidation. Pattern. Destroy a few mining platforms to show our power, then demand surrender." The Veltharan ships moved into attack formation, their energy weapons charging with an ominous blue glow. The time was exactly 14:32 Earth Standard Time. The battle that followed would last only 14 minutes, but those 14 minutes would change everything. The first sign that something was wrong came when the mining equipment on Mars suddenly opened up like deadly flowers. What had looked like simple rock-crushing machines revealed themselves as massive railguns, their barrels pointing directly at the alien fleet. Captain Song Min-ho sat in his command center, deep inside Olympus Mons, the largest volcano in the solar system. His facility had been carved out of the mountain itself, hidden from all sensors. Around him, dozens of technicians worked at control stations, managing weapons that had been built in secret over decades. "Fire," Song ordered. The railguns spoke with thunder that shook the entire planet. Tungsten rods the size of telephone poles were fired at incredible speeds, moving so fast they became invisible streaks of light. These were not energy weapons that could be deflected by shields. They were pure kinetic force, unstoppable metal moving at nearly the speed of light. The first Veltharan cruiser, Stellar Might, never knew what hit it. The tungsten penetrator punched through its hull like a bullet through paper, tearing through multiple decks before exploding out the other side. The ship's energy shields, designed to deflect plasma bolts, were completely useless against solid projectiles. "Target their engines next," Song called to his weapons crew. "We want some of them to survive and run back home with the story." But the railguns were just the beginning. All around Mars, what had appeared to be simple mining operations revealed their true nature. Asteroid processing facilities were actually weapons factories. Cargo ships were armed gunboats. Even the orbital research stations were bristling with hidden weapons. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, Lieutenant Lee Ja-young sat in an underground bunker filled with the most advanced computers humanity had ever built. She was not fighting with guns or missiles. Her weapons were codes and viruses, designed to turn the enemy's own technology against them. "I'm into their main computer system," she reported to her commander. "These aliens have never seen cyber warfare before. Their firewalls are like paper walls." Her fingers flew across the keyboard, as she uploaded a virus into the Stellar Might's computer network. Within seconds, she had taken control of the ship's weapons systems. The alien crew watched in horror as their own plasma cannons turned around. Hand began firing at their escort ships. "This is impossible," screamed the Veltharan weapons officer. "Our guns are firing by themselves." The virus Lee had planted was not just taking control of weapons. It was copying itself to every computer system on the ship, learning alien technology and preparing to spread to other vessels. The Veltharans had never encountered anything like it because they had never fought a species that treated information as a weapon. Across the battlefield, Veltharan ships began exploding in brilliant flashes of light. Some were destroyed by railgun projectiles that hit them like invisible hammers. Others were torn apart by their own weapons, turned against them by human hackers. A few were crippled by swarms of small missiles that seemed to come from everywhere. At once, the alien crews were trained to fight other energy-based civilizations. They knew how to handle plasma battles and shield conflicts, but humans fought differently. They used solid projectiles, computer viruses, and tactics that the aliens had never seen before. Admiral Kren Prime watched his fleet die around him with growing terror. These were not the tactics of a civilized military. The humans were fighting, like wild animals, using every dirty trick they could think of. Only one ship escaped the massacre, the destroyer Quick Strike. Its captain had panicked early and fled at maximum speed, leaving his companions to die. When he returned to report to the main fleet, he was shaking with fear. "They don't fight like soldiers," he told Admiral Kren Prime. "They fight like predators, playing with wounded prey. They could have killed us all instantly, but they chose to make us suffer first. What kind of species does that?" The probe mission had lasted exactly 14 minutes. In that time, the Veltharan Empire had lost 11 ships to a species they had dismissed as primitive. Worse, they had no idea how the humans had done it. The real war was about to begin. Emperor Vash Eternal sat on his crystal throne inside the most powerful spaceship ever built. The galaxy's will was more than just a ship. It was a floating palace, the size of a small moon, carrying enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. The Emperor's throne room was carved from a single massive crystal that glowed within a light, making his scaled skin look like polished metal. The Emperor had ruled the Veltharan Empire for over 1,000 years. In all that time, no primitive species had ever defeated one of his fleets. The report from the Mars probe mission lay on his crystalline desk, but he could barely believe what he was reading. 11 ships destroyed in 14 minutes, he said aloud, his voice echoing through the vast throne room, by a species that has never left their own solar system. His military advisors stood around him, all looking nervous and confused. Never in the Empire's 3,000-year history had a single-planet civilization destroyed an entire probe fleet. Most species surrendered after seeing just one Veltharan cruiser. The Emperor's compound eyes glowed with anger. His pride had been wounded, and that was something he could not allow. "Declare humanity a Class 7 threat," he commanded, his voice like breaking stone. "Deploy the subjugation armada immediately. This insult ends now." A Class 7 threat was the highest military classification in the Empire. It was reserved for species that had destroyed multiple Imperial fleets and posed a real danger to Veltharan. Expansion. No single-planet civilization had ever received this classification before. The subjugation armada was the Empire's ultimate weapon. Over 300 of the largest warships ever built, each one capable of cracking a planet's surface. When the subjugation armada was deployed, entire civilizations simply ceased to exist. Meanwhile, deep beneath the streets of Seoul, the Human War Council was meeting in the most secure bunker on Earth. The room was filled with holographic displays, showing alien ship movements across the galaxy. Red dots marked Veltharan forces, and there were a lot of red dots heading toward Earth. General Lee Dae-ho stood at the center of the room, his weathered face calm despite the enormous threat approaching. His world. Around him sat the leaders of every major nation on Earth, all united for the first time in human history. "The situation is serious," announced Intelligence Chief Han So-young, pointing to the tactical display. "Our spy networks confirm they are pulling ships from 12 different sectors of their empire. Over 300 capital ships are heading directly to our solar system. President Park Min-seo studied the numbers with growing concern. Each of those ships was larger than anything humans had ever built. The firepower heading toward Earth was enough to sterilize a dozen worlds. "Can we really handle that many ships?" she asked quietly. Colonel Kim Tae-hyun, the man who had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, smiled grimly as he activated another holographic display. "Madam President, for 50 years, every human government has been secretly contributing to the Seoul Defense Initiative. Republicans, Democrats, Communists, Capitalists, everyone put aside their differences to prepare for this day." The new hologram showed the truth that had been hidden from the galaxy. What looked like simple asteroid mining operations were actually massive weapons platforms. Civilian colonies on Mars and the outer planets were really military fortresses. Even harmless-looking cargo ships were armed with enough firepower to level cities. "Look at this," Tae-hyun continued, zooming in on Earth's moon. "We have railguns built into the lunar surface that can fire projectiles at nearly light speed. Jupiter's moons house manufacturing facilities that have been building weapons for decades. Even the tourist stations around Saturn are really military bases." The display revealed the most ambitious military project in human history. The entire solar system had been turned into one giant fortress, with weapons hidden in every asteroid, moon, and space station. "The aliens are expecting to conduct a simple orbital bombardment," Tae-hyun explained. "They think they will hover above Earth and rain death from space until we surrender. Instead, they are flying directly into the most sophisticated killing field ever created." Across the solar system, human military commanders were making final preparations. Captain Yoon Hee-jin stood on the bridge of her ship, which looked like an ordinary colony transport called New Busan. To alien sensors, it appeared to be carrying families and supplies to Mars. But hidden beneath the civilian exterior was enough military hardware to destroy a Veltharan dreadnought. The passenger compartments were really missile bays. The cargo holds contained railguns. Even the ship's hull was designed to absorb enemy fire while hiding the true weapons within. "Final systems check," Hee-jin ordered her crew, who all wore civilian clothes to maintain the disguise. "Remember, we are not just defending our home, we are about to teach the entire galaxy what happens when someone threatens humanity." Her weapons officer, disguised as a cargo handler, reported quietly, "All systems green, Captain. We are ready to show these aliens why humans have survived on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. The trap was set. The aliens were coming." With the largest fleet in their history, confident they would easily crush the primitive humans, they had no idea they were about to face the combined military might of a species that had spent millions of years learning how to kill. The real war was about to begin, and humanity was ready. The moment every human had been preparing for finally arrived. Space around the edge of the solar system suddenly filled with massive alien warships as the Veltharan subjugation armada dropped out of hyperspace. Over 300 enormous vessels appeared in perfect military formation, their hulls gleaming with deadly energy weapons. Admiral Vox Supreme stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominance, looking out at the small blue planet that had dared to defy his empire. He was a veteran of 100 conquered worlds, and Earth looked no different from any other primitive civilization he had crushed. "Begin advance to bombardment range," he ordered with calm confidence. "Standard orbital destruction protocol. We will hover above their planet and rain plasma fire until they surrender or die." The massive alien fleet began moving forward in their traditional battle formation. Each ship was the size of a small city, armed with weapons that could melt continents. The Admiral expected the humans to either surrender immediately when they saw the overwhelming force or put up a brief, hopeless resistance. Instead, what happened next would be remembered as the greatest military trap in galactic history. The human response was immediate and absolutely devastating. Space around the alien fleet suddenly came alive with death. What the Veltharans had dismissed as harmless asteroid debris revealed their true nature. Rocks that had been floating in space for thousands of years opened up like deadly flowers, exposing railguns, missile batteries, and weapons the aliens had never seen before. Captain Jung Min-kyu sat in his command center, deep inside what looked like an ordinary asteroid. For 20 years, his team had hollowed out the space rock and filled it with enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Around him, hundreds of similar hidden bases were waking up across the solar system. "All stations report ready," his weapons officer announced. Jung smiled grimly as he watched the alien ships enter his carefully planned kill zone. "Fire everything," he commanded. The asteroid belt exploded with light as thousands of hidden weapons opened fire simultaneously. Tungsten rods the size of telephone poles were fired at incredible speeds, moving so fast they became streaks of pure energy. These projectiles hit the alien ships with the force of nuclear bombs, punching through their energy shields like they were made of paper. The Veltharans had spent thousands of years perfecting energy-based warfare. Their shields were designed to deflect plasma bolts and laser beams, but they had never faced kinetic weapons, solid objects moving at nearly the speed of light. Their advanced technology was completely useless against what was essentially very fast rocks. The first wave of alien ships began exploding in brilliant flashes of light. Hulls that had been designed to withstand plasma bombardment were torn apart by simple metal rods, moving at tremendous velocity. On the dwarf planet, Ceres, Major Park Young-soo coordinated the outer system defenses from a command center that had been carved out of solid rock. His screens showed the battle unfolding across millions of miles of space. "Target their formation leaders first," he ordered his weapons teams. "Break their command structure, and they will panic." Park had studied alien military tactics for decades. The Veltharans fought in rigid formations with clear chains of command. If you destroyed the command ships, the rest of the fleet would become confused and disorganized. The battle quickly became a massacre. Veltharan ships were designed for elegant formations and coordinated plasma exchanges against similar opponents. They had never faced an enemy that attacked from everywhere at once using weapons they could not understand or defend against. Small human ships that had been disguised as cargo vessels suddenly revealed their true nature. They darted between the massive alien vessels like wolves attacking a herd of cattle, their advanced engines allowing them to move faster than anything the Veltharans had ever seen. Admiral Vox Supreme watched his mighty fleet being torn apart around him with growing horror. His ships were exploding faster than he could count them. Worse, the human attacks seemed to be perfectly coordinated across the entire solar system, even though their ships were millions of miles apart. How are they coordinating their attacks? He demanded from his communications officer. The alien's voice trembled with fear. "Sir, our sensors detect quantum entanglement communicators. They have instantaneous communication across their entire system. Every human commander knows exactly what every other commander is doing in real time." The Admiral felt his blood run cold. Quantum entanglement communication was theoretical technology that even the advanced Veltharan Empire had never been able to perfect. Yet these primitive humans were using it as if it were common equipment. He realized with growing terror that humanity had been preparing for this exact war since their first contact with aliens. They had turned every apparent technological disadvantage into a strategic advantage through pure tactical innovation. The humans were not fighting like a primitive civilization trying to survive. They were fighting like apex predators who had spent millions of years learning how to kill anything that threatened them. And the Veltharan Empire had just walked into the most sophisticated killing field in the galaxy. While the massive space battle raged across the solar system, Captain Lee Soo-jin was fighting a completely different kind of war from her position aboard the intelligence vessel Silent Hunter. Her ship looked like a simple research vessel, floating quietly near Jupiter's moons, but it contained the most advanced psychological warfare equipment humanity had ever built. Lee had spent 15 years studying alien psychology, learning everything she could about how different species thought and felt. What she discovered about the Veltharans was fascinating and terrifying. Unlike humans who had evolved as hunters and predators, the Veltharans had evolved from prey animals, creatures that survived by running away and hiding from danger. "Begin information warfare protocol," she ordered her communications team. This was humanity's most devastating weapon, one that could destroy enemy morale without firing a single shot. Lee's team began broadcasting on every Veltharan communication frequency, flooding their networks with carefully selected human historical footage. The first images showed the muddy trenches of World War I, where millions of humans had fought and died in conditions that would drive most alien species insane. Soldiers covered in mud and blood, charging through poison gas attacks, fighting with primitive weapons in the most horrible conditions imaginable. Then came footage of nuclear explosions, massive mushroom clouds rising above destroyed cities, showing the incredible destructive power humans were willing to use against each other. The aliens watched in shock as they realized humans had built weapons capable of destroying their own planet and had actually used them in war. Next were scenes of urban warfare from conflicts around the world. Humans fighting house by house, street by street, never giving up even when their cities were reduced to rubble. Soldiers who kept fighting even when wounded, even when outnumbered, even when defeat seemed certain. But the footage was not just random violence. Each video was accompanied by clinical military analysis, explaining the tactical thinking behind every human action. The aliens learned that humans had spent thousands of years developing ways to fight opponents with equal technology and intelligence. Aboard the Veltharan flagship Eternal Dominance, Communications Officer Zix-9 stared at his screens in growing horror. His hands were shaking as he watched human soldiers doing things that his species considered impossible. "Admiral," he reported to Vox Supreme, his voice barely a whisper, "they are broadcasting their military history to us. Sir, these humans fight wars that last for years. They fight even when their cities are destroyed. They fight even when they are dying." The footage showed humans creating weapons from anything they could find, turning farming tools into spears, household chemicals into explosives, even using their own vehicles as guided missiles in desperate situations. It revealed a species that had weaponized everything in their environment, including themselves. Admiral Vox Supreme watched the broadcasts with growing dread. His species had achieved space travel through cooperation and advanced science. They had never fought a serious war because they were naturally peaceful creatures who preferred to avoid conflict. But humans were different. The footage showed a species that had survived by becoming the most efficient killers on their planet. They had fought each other for millions of years, constantly improving their weapons and tactics. War was not something humans did. War was what humans were. The psychological effect on the Veltharan crews was immediate and devastating. These aliens had evolved from prey animals, and their deepest instincts were screaming at them that they were facing the ultimate predator. Dr. Kim Hyo-jin monitored the alien communications from her secret bunker on the moon. She was Earth's leading expert on alien psychology, and she had designed this psychological warfare campaign specifically to target Veltharan evolutionary fears. "Their stress indicators are completely off the charts," she reported to Earth Command. "We are triggering deep evolutionary trauma responses. Their fight-or-flight instincts are telling them to run, but they cannot escape in space." Across the Veltharan fleet, alien crews began experiencing panic attacks. Some collapsed at their stations, unable to function, while their instincts screamed warnings about the apex predators they were fighting. Others began making mistakes, their judgment clouded by primal fear. Several Veltharan ships stopped fighting entirely and began transmitting surrender signals. Their crews could not continue battling an enemy that their evolutionary programming told them was unbeatable. The human response to these surrenders surprised the aliens even more. Instead of destroying the disabled ships, human boarding parties took control of them and treated the alien crews according to human laws of war. The prisoners were given medical care, food, and comfortable quarters. This confused the Veltharans even more. In their experience, predators killed their prey. They did not understand a species that could be utterly ruthless in battle, but merciful to defeated enemies. What the aliens did not realize was that humans had learned something important during their long history of warfare. Treating prisoners well often convinced other enemies to surrender rather than fight to the death. It was not just mercy. It was another tactical advantage. The psychological warfare campaign was working perfectly. The Veltharan fleet was not just being destroyed by human weapons. It was being broken by the realization that they were fighting. A species that had evolved specifically to be the perfect warriors. And the battle was just beginning. What happened next shocked every alien civilization in the galaxy. For the first time in galactic history, a species that had been attacked decided to hunt down their attackers. The Veltharan subjugation armada was retreating in chaos, their mighty fleet scattered and broken, but the humans were not content to simply defend their home. General Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the battleship Indomitable, Korea, watching the fleeing alien ships through his tactical displays. Most species would have celebrated victory and gone home. But humans were different. They had learned long ago that sometimes the best defense was to chase down your enemy and make sure they could never attack you again. "Begin Operation Long Hunt," he commanded. This operation had been planned years in advance. Human military. Strategists had studied the behavior of every successful predator species on Earth, from wolves to sharks to ancient human hunters. They had learned that the most effective way to end a threat was to pursue it relentlessly until it could no longer fight back. The human pursuit fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. While Veltharan ships were large and heavily armored, designed for traditional battles between fleets, human ships were smaller, faster, and built specifically for hunting down fleeing enemies. Captain Seo Min-jung led the first squadron of hunter-killer ships toward the retreating Veltharan fleet. Her vessels looked almost like space-age fighter jets, sleek, fast, and deadly. Their advanced engines could accelerate to speeds that made Veltharan ships look like they were standing still. "Target the slowest ships first," she ordered her squadron. "We want the survivors to panic and make mistakes." The humans had studied pack-hunting strategies used by wolves and other predators on Earth. Instead of trying to destroy the entire enemy fleet at once, they picked off the weakest ships first, causing fear and confusion among the survivors. What made the human pursuit even more terrifying was their coordination. While the Veltharan ships were scattered and confused, trying to flee in different directions, the human ships worked together like a single organism. They communicated instantly across vast distances using quantum entanglement technology, allowing them to coordinate attacks across multiple star systems simultaneously. Lieutenant Commander Bae Dong-hyun had captured a Veltharan communication relay station during the initial battle. From his position aboard the alien facility, he was systematically taking control of the Empire's entire communication network. "I'm inside their main data systems," he reported to Earth Command, uploading viruses to cripple their military coordination, also sending something special to their conquered species. The something special was a complete copy of human military doctrine, tactics, and weapon designs. Bae was broadcasting this information to every enslaved species in the Veltharan Empire, teaching them how to fight back against their oppressors. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Veltharans. Species that had been conquered and enslaved for hundreds of years suddenly found themselves with access to the most advanced military knowledge in the galaxy. They learned how humans had turned simple materials into deadly weapons, how to coordinate resistance movements, and most importantly, how to never give up fighting. Admiral Park Jin-woo commanded the main pursuit fleet from his flagship. He had been a submarine commander in the Korean Navy before the alien invasion, and he understood the psychology of hunting prey beneath the waves. Space was just another ocean, and fleeing alien ships were just another type of prey. "Status report," he called to his tactical officer, Major Shin Yu-jin. "Sir, the alien fleet is completely scattered," she reported. "Some ships are trying to reach their nearest military base, others are fleeing toward the galactic rim, but none of them are regrouping to fight." Jin-woo studied the tactical display, watching red dots representing alien ships flee in all directions, like frightened fish. "They're not conducting a strategic retreat," he observed. "They're running in blind panic." Major Shin nodded grimly. "They've realized they're being hunted by apex predators, sir. Their prey instincts have taken over completely. What the fleeing aliens didn't understand was that humans had evolved to be persistence hunters. On the African plains, early humans had hunted animals much larger and faster than themselves by simply never giving up. They would track their prey for days or weeks, never letting it rest until exhaustion and fear broke the animal's will to fight. Now humanity was applying the same strategy in space. Human ships pursued the fleeing Veltharans relentlessly, never allowing them to regroup or rest. Every time an alien ship tried to hide, human hunters found it. Every time they tried to call for help, human hackers intercepted their communications. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 Veltharan ships." Admiral Jinwoo smiled coldly. "Accept their surrenders, but keep hunting the others. Fear is spreading through their entire fleet faster than our ships can catch them." The message was clear to every alien species watching. Humanity was not just defending itself. It was demonstrating what happened to anyone foolish enough to threaten Earth. The hunt would continue until every threat was eliminated, no matter how far the prey tried to run. The age of human dominance in the galaxy had begun, and it started with a simple lesson every predator knew. Never let dangerous prey escape to attack another day. After 3 months of relentless human pursuit, the mighty Veltharan Empire was broken. 60% of their entire military had been destroyed or captured by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Emperor Vash Eternal, who had once ruled from a massive crystal palace, now sat in his throne room aboard a fleeing command ship, constantly moving to avoid human hunter-killer squadrons. The Emperor had never experienced defeat before. For over 1,000 years, his empire had expanded across the galaxy without ever losing a single war. Now his once mighty fleet was scattered, his soldiers were afraid to fight, and his conquered worlds were beginning to question his power. Desperate to save what remained of his empire, the Emperor reached out through diplomatic channels, using neutral alien species as intermediaries to contact Earth. He expected the humans to be reasonable, to accept tribute and territory in exchange for peace. After all, that was how civilized warfare was supposed to work. The human response, delivered personally by President Park Min-seo in a broadcast that reached every corner of the galaxy, shocked every intelligent species within 1,000 light-years. "The Veltharan Empire will immediately and unconditionally liberate all conquered species," she stated in a calm, clear voice that somehow made her words even more terrifying. "They will dissolve their military hierarchy and abandon all occupied worlds. Furthermore, all former imperial slaves will receive human military training and full support for their independence movements." The president paused, looking directly into the camera with eyes that had seen too much war. "These terms are completely non-negotiable. The Emperor has 72 hours to begin compliance, or we will continue our operations until every enslaved world is free." Emperor Vash Eternal watched the broadcast from his fleeing flagship, his scaled hands gripping his crystal throne so tightly that cracks appeared in the armrests. The humans were not just demanding his surrender, they were demanding the complete destruction of everything he had built over 3 millennia. "Impossible," he hissed to his remaining advisors. "We still control over 800 worlds. These humans cannot liberate every planet in our empire." But the Emperor had underestimated humanity once again. When he refused the surrender terms, the humans began Phase 2 of their operation, something they called the Liberation Campaign. Colonel Kim Tae-hyun led the Liberation Fleet to its first target, the industrial world of Cathara. For 2 centuries, the native Morellians had been enslaved by the Veltharans, forced to manufacture weapons for their oppressors in massive factory complexes that covered entire continents. The human attack was swift and surgical. Orbital defense, platforms that had protected the world for decades, were destroyed in minutes by human railguns. The Veltharan garrison, already demoralized by news of the Empire's defeats, surrendered after only token resistance. Within hours, 3 million Morellian slaves were free for the first time in their lives. But liberation was only the beginning. Major Lee Hanul and her team of military instructors immediately began teaching the freed Morellians how to fight. They showed them how to turn their industrial knowledge into weapons, how to organize resistance cells, and most importantly, how to never give up fighting for their freedom. "You know how to build starships," Lee told a gathering of former factory workers. "Now we will teach you how to build weapons that can destroy starships. You understand manufacturing. We will show you how to manufacture revolution." The pattern repeated across dozens of worlds. Human liberation fleets would arrive, quickly defeat the Veltharan garrisons, and then spend weeks training the newly freed populations in guerrilla warfare tactics that had been perfected through centuries of human conflict. Captain Song Mi-young, found herself on the agricultural world of Xenthos, where the native population had been forced to grow food for the Empire for over 300 years. The aliens were peaceful farmers who had never known violence, but Song quickly discovered they had skills that could be turned to other purposes. "You have been growing crops to feed your oppressors," she told a group of former agricultural slaves, as she demonstrated how to make explosives from common farming chemicals. "Now you will grow something else. Revolution. Every farm will become a weapons factory. Every farmer will become a freedom fighter." The results were beyond anything that humans had hoped for. Within 6 months, the Veltharan Empire faced coordinated uprisings on 47 different worlds. Every rebellion was led by species who had been trained in human military doctrine, armed with human weapons, and inspired by human determination to never surrender. The galaxy watched in amazement as world after world threw off Veltharan rule. Species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly became dangerous enemies, using tactics the Empire had never seen before. Factory workers became saboteurs, farmers became bomb makers, and peaceful civilians became guerrilla fighters. Emperor Vash Eternal realized with growing horror that the humans had not just defeated his military, they had turned his entire empire against him. Every world he had conquered was now a potential enemy. Every slave was now a potential warrior, and every day brought news of more uprisings. The humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not just won a war, they had started a revolution that was spreading across the entire galaxy like wildfire, and it was only the beginning. The war that had shaken the entire galaxy finally came to an end aboard a human diplomatic vessel called Eternal Peace. The ship orbited above what used to be the capital world of the mighty Veltharan Empire, but now the planet looked broken and defeated. Massive cities that had once bustled with imperial power were dark and empty, their alien inhabitants having fled to distant worlds. Emperor Vash Eternal sat across from the human delegation, looking nothing like the proud ruler who had ordered humanity's destruction just 1 year earlier. His crystalline throne had been replaced by a simple chair. His magnificent robes were gone, replaced by plain diplomatic clothing. Most telling of all, his compound eyes no longer glowed with arrogant power. They were dim with the weight of total defeat. The Emperor's empire, which had once controlled over 800 star systems across 3,000 years, had been reduced to just a handful of core worlds. Everywhere else, former slaves had risen up using human military tactics, driving out their Veltharan oppressors and declaring their independence. President Park Min-seo sat calmly across from the fallen emperor, a stack of documents between them. These papers would reshape the entire galaxy, establishing new rules that would govern how civilizations interacted with each other. "Your Majesty," she said in a voice that was respectful but firm, "these solar accords will establish humanity as the galaxy's official peacekeeping force. They guarantee the complete independence of all species that were formerly enslaved by your empire." Standing nearby was Ambassador Crix, the same alien who had delivered the original ultimatum to Earth so many months ago. But now he served as a diplomatic liaison between the former empire and humanity. After watching his people's complete defeat, he had spent months studying human culture and military history, trying to understand how such a small species had accomplished the impossible. Emperor Vash Eternal picked up the signing stylus with a trembling hand. His appendages shook as he realized he was about to sign away everything his ancestors had built over millennia. The document in front of him formalized his empire's complete surrender to what he had once dismissed as a primitive single-planet species. As he signed his name with slow, defeated strokes, cameras from across the galaxy recorded the moment. Every intelligent species in known space watched as the most powerful empire in galactic history officially surrendered to humanity. After the signing ceremony concluded, representatives from hundreds of alien civilizations gathered in the ship's main conference hall. They had come from every corner of the galaxy to witness this historic moment and to understand how the Veltharan Empire had fallen so completely. Ambassador Crix found himself at the center of attention as species after species asked the same question: how had humanity done it? "We made a fundamental error in judgment," Crix explained to the assembled crowd of alien diplomats. "We assumed that humans were like most species, beings who had achieved space travel despite having a violent past. We completely failed to understand that they achieved space travel because of their violent nature." He activated a holographic display that showed human evolutionary history, millions of years of survival on a planet that most aliens would consider a death world. The display showed how humans had evolved not just intelligence, but the specific type of intelligence needed to become perfect predators. "Most species in the galaxy develop intelligence to avoid conflict," Crix continued, his voice growing stronger as he explained the lesson his people had learned too late. "We use our minds to find peaceful solutions, to cooperate, to build civilizations based on harmony. But humans are different. They developed intelligence specifically to perfect conflict. They are not a peaceful civilization that happens to be good at warfare. They are warfare itself, given consciousness and set loose among the stars." General Lee Dae-ho, representing the human delegation, listened to these words with a slight smile. He had spent his entire career studying the art of war, but he had never heard it explained so clearly by a former enemy. Crix gestured toward Earth, visible through the ship's large viewing windows. "That planet they call home would kill most of us within hours. Poisonous atmosphere, deadly weather, predators that exist nowhere else in the galaxy. Yet humans call it paradise because they evolved to thrive in conditions that would destroy any other species." The alien ambassador's voice grew quiet as he delivered his final warning to the gathered representatives. "They warned us to leave their system peacefully. We should have listened. Humanity does not simply wage war when necessary. They are war itself, walking among the stars in human form." As the diplomatic gathering dispersed, Earth's representatives prepared for their new role as the galaxy's protectors. They knew that their reputation alone would be enough to prevent most conflicts before they began. No species would want to face the same fate as the Veltheran Empire. The age of human expansion had begun, but not through conquest or colonization. Instead, it had started with a simple demonstration that some species should never ever be threatened. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo through the stars for generations to come. When humans warn you to leave them alone, you listen. And somewhere in the depths of space, on countless worlds across the galaxy, former slaves who had been trained by human instructors continued their work, ensuring that no empire would ever again enslave the free peoples of the stars. The Ahi. Humans had kept their promise. Earth was safe, the galaxy was free, and everyone now understood why no species had ever successfully conquered humanity. The lesson was simple, and it would never be forgotten. Never threaten the humans.